Hi, it's Thad with Willoway Nurseries here in Avon, Ohio. As spring has sprung, I guess, things are coming on. We had temperatures this last weekend and last week upwards in mid 60s to upper 60s, and some nighttime temperatures that were in the mid 40s for the low. When we see some combinations like that, plants start wanting to grow, and sometimes it's not the ideal time of year here. We're still in mid-March, and we're still going to get cold temperatures. In fact, tonight they're talking upper teens for our lows here. So that's important for us. We're scrambling today, trying to get things recovered. We're pulling inside plastic over plants. And as you can see, we've got active plants that are growing. These plants will not take a cold like that. They'll damage them and set them back, and they won't be able to go. So if you have plants that are actively growing like this outside, you need to get them inside, or you need to get them covered up if there's some plants that can take it. Now, there are plants that can take that kind of cold. For example, evergreens are a good example that can take that colder weather. Some of your hardier tree species for your area, as long as they haven't broken bud yet. Ivory silk Japanese tree lilac at our Long Road farm has broken bud, and the leaves are starting to unfurrow. At that point, we can have problems with them. They'll actually burn the tips, and a disease will come in, sometimes called Pseudomonas, on that cold weather, and it'll actually blacken and curl the tips. So it is important that we're watching and discussing this cold weather. Hi, this is Staircase Lupin. This is red. This is a crop right now is actively growing. Lupin can take a little bit colder, but they're not going to take that kind of cold. So to be safe, we kind of use the 40-degree rule a lot of times with actively growing plants. We'll sometimes push it down for short periods of being exposed down to like 36, but we shut all that down. Some of these plants we're forcing for Mother's Day, those crops are in like 60 to 65 degree houses right now. You take that outside and put it out and expose it to 20 degree or below, there's really no chance of it going to be looking very nice, and it's going to set it way back. These have really nice root systems. They're developing really nicely, but you want to take care of it. You want to keep it looking good. You spent, the money into it. We put a lot of time and effort into it. We're kind of on we're getting towards the end of moving the crops out, so that's important for us to make sure that we're doing all the things we need to do. That's that Willoway. I came over to our distribution center here in Avon. I want to talk a little bit about evergreens. I touched on it slightly a little earlier, but evergreens are really pretty tough in this. The biggest problems we have right now in spring with evergreens is the large amount of wind. As you can see, we're getting a lot of wind. Yesterday we had some winds in the area, or Friday, I'm sorry, losing track of days here in spring. Friday we had winds upwards between 60 and 70 miles an hour here. Did a lot of damage to some of our plastic covering on the houses, so we've been working to kind of get that done. These houses we won't really recover again unless there's something really bad out there. But the important part is making sure that we get water on these. Right now is when you're going to see all the winter burn happen in evergreens. So when the weather is decent and you can get out water this stuff, it's critical that you get them hydrated again. Once the pots thaw out, they got to get water. Same with broadleaf evergreens like Taxus. You've got Taxus, you've got hollies, Mahonia, all that kind of stuff that has a broadleaf evergreen or an evergreen itself needs to get water here in March. It's really crucial to have high quality plants. Yeah, one of the other aspects is you notice we're down on the ground here. There's ground heat in the ground that helps keep these pots a little warmer in this kind of weather. If you're up on a bench, you've got air circulating around it, and that can damage the roots in the pots as well. So if you have stuff on benches, you got to make sure that you're insulating it, getting it off those benches, covering with plastic. If the plastic is touching like green growth, sometimes that will go right through the plastic and damage like a broadleaf, or not a broadleaf, a deciduous plant. So really understanding what stage the plants are at right now is important, and where they need to go. If they need to go back into a warehouse for a day or two, or do they need to go into a trailer, or can you put them on the ground and cover them up? So just be thinking through that, where it's at in its growth stage. If it's leafed out, you got to get it inside or protected. Hi, I want to talk a little bit about some of another cooler crop that we have to extend the bloom time. It's Iberis. So this one's loaded up with buds. This one's a little farther along. You can see what it blooms like. They're really nice. Early spring bloomer, kind of semi-evergreen, nice mounding habit. So a great plant, dark foliage. So there's a couple selections there. We also have phlox. We have the Blue Moon and Sherwood Forest. So these are really nice, really early bloomers. Again, I don't know if I got one in bloom handy. I got a couple back here. So you can see this dark purple flower on it. Very stunning, but this one's a real early bloomer. So this is one of the plants where you got to kind of know what you're picking and get it early. But this would be a plant that would hit your benches and be able to withstand, real early spring, get you some color going early. So there's a lot of crops that we move in to really try to hold them back so that when they hit your yard, they're looking good and giving you a lot of color early. So we touched on this a couple weeks ago, but we still have a good selection of hellebores, but we're moving through them. They're really one of those plants that can really take this early season cold up and down. Obviously we wouldn't want to leave them out in this, but we've got a number of crops, lots of varieties. We're pretty strong still, but as we get towards the end of the month here, we're really going to be moving. We've already moved quite a bit. Several racks are already gone, almost every variety. So, but really long bloom time, which makes these great. There's a lot of the Frost Kiss series, which has some great colors in it. Really good plants that work. So check it out. Get with your salesperson if you're interested in seeing all the varieties we have. All right, another selection we got in the cooler is a full line of our Forsythia. So as you can see, they're not budded. They're budded, but they're not really out in color yet. These things, about a day or two outside, once they land, you'll start to see those flower buds emerge, that nice yellow. So lots of good choices here. This is show some time. We have many more of these in the cooler as well, because we want to try to split the crop out a little bit so that you can have that kind of peak when it hits. We do peonies, German iris, we're doing azaleas, rhododendrons. A lot of these early blooming things we want to try to kind of give you more shelf life, at least for ours, to be able to ship and give you a peak plant.